Okay, this is the walkthrough tutorial for the database's performance objective for those of you that do not have Microsoft Access. So you're going to be downloading from the internet a program called Apache OpenOffice. So if you go out to your favorite search engine in your favorite browser and type in Apache OpenOffice, the first result should be Apache's OpenOffice. And when you go into the site, this is what it looked like on the day I opened it. One of the items up here was I want to download Apache OpenOffice. It will take you to another screen which will allow you to select your computer platform version. Typically it's either going to be Windows or it's going to be a Macintosh version. Those of you on Linux, you probably already have a copy of this because it's an open source software. So when you go to install, it's going to ask you somewhere along the way, do you want to do a typical setup or do you want to do a custom setup? You only want to do the custom setup. You don't want to overwrite whatever you're using right now for word processing and for spreadsheets and for presentations. And this, it won't, I say overwrite, it's going to try to be the default program for them. So you're going to choose custom, and then what you're going to choose in custom, you're going to pull down each of these. The writer is their version of a word processor. Pull this down and make it an X. The calc, the draw, the impress, everything except the OpenOffice base. And then you can click next and walk through the rest of it. And it's going to install for you OpenOffice. And you'll have a new little icon with these two little seagulls right here that will be on your desktop. And we'll get to that point. And once you get that done, turn the video back on and I'll show you how to create a database. So you've installed OpenOffice. And when you first open it up, it's going to give you some options to open some things. I did not install the documents and spreadsheets and presentations. The only thing I installed was the database, and that is the only option I have available to me. So I'm going to click to create a database, and it's going to ask me some questions. If you don't know the answers to these questions, you do like I do and just take what they recommend. So I'm going to go next, and yes, let's let it register it on the database. So we will create this. We're going to call this again your name mystery. I can't type. That's okay. And then we're going to save this. We finish it. It's going to go through the process of opening. And here we have tables, queries, forms, and reports. So it's pretty similar to what you've seen in Microsoft Access, only it's just laid out a little bit differently. So for tables, we can create a table in our design view. So let's go ahead and do this. Here is our field name, the field type, and the description. So let's start with the same sort of information that we had in the first video for the introduction. Name of suspect is going to be text. Okay. Next up, we're going to have their sex. We are going to have their hair. We are going to have their eyes. We're going to have their height. We are going to have their build. And we are going to have whether or not they are wearing glasses. So let's click in here. Instead of it being text, let's look and see what options we've got. It is either going to be, it's pretty similar, right? It's yes or no. So now I've created my first little table here. Now one of the ways that this is different than Access is we actually have open two separate windows. So we have the database itself and we have the table. So it's not within the same program. So I'm going to go to File and I'm going to save this. It's going to ask us, what do you want to save this table as? Let's just call it suspects, since that's who we've got here. Okay. Should a primary key be created now? Yes, we're going to create a primary key, which did that for us automatically. Now I can file and I can close this. And when I go back to my front view here, I have a table that has all the suspects on it. So let's open up our suspects table. When I double click on it, it opens it up for me. And I entered my first person in here already. I put in Anvil. She's female. Her hair is black. Her eyes are brown. She is short and of medium build, and she is not wearing glasses. One thing I'm not particularly fond of is I have to enter my own primary key. So for my second suspect, I put the number 2 for my primary key, and then I can start to enter kitty litter and the rest of her information. Now all this information is available for you. It is in the workbook. Go ahead and get all 40 of these records entered. Fill out each of the fields, double checking your spelling, and when we come back, we will work on creating a query and a report. Okay, so I have entered all of the data that we need, and hopefully you've had a chance to stop and do that. If you haven't, stop and do that now. So as I said, the OpenOffice version of databases puts this in a separate window. So I want to save this, and then I can go ahead and close this. And now what I have when I'm back in my base view here, I have the suspects table open. Let's create now a query. So we'll be creating our query using the design view. When I click, it's going to ask me which table do I want to be using, so I'm using suspects. I could also be creating a query within a query if I had written one and I got further information to narrow it down, but we're just using the table for now. I'm adding, and you can see this is the table I have available. It's got all the information. Stretch that out so we can see what we've got on our table here. Close it. Now let's add these fields into our query. So I'm going to put the suspect's ID. I'm going to put the suspect's name. I am going to be using, of course, their sex. I'm going to be using their hair. I'm going to be using their eyes, their height, their build, and whether or not they're wearing glasses. So the build and whether or not they're wearing glasses. So in my criteria down below, I don't know their ID or their name, but I do know that my suspect is male. And it's putting it in the quote for me so that it knows to treat it as text. Hair color is black. Eyes are brown. Their height is tall. And they are of a small build. They're slender. So once I've entered this information, and you'll enter this same information here on yours, I'm going to run my query. And when I do, I get Gary Mander, who is male, has black hair, brown eyes, tall, small, and he also wears glasses. So that is the query that you're going to run for me. So I have the results of my query. I'm just going to save this. Query name, let's just call it suspect. I click OK. Now when I close this window, what I go back to is I have the suspect here in my queries. I have the table that has all of my suspects, and I can save this and upload it to Canvas now. When you save it, make sure that you save it as the Your Name Mystery. It's going to default to the open database format. I can just click Save, and this is the file that you're going to upload for me. Yes, it already exists. That's okay. You'll upload this file to Canvas. I will go in, I will check your tables, make sure that you have the suspects all entered, and I will check your query to make sure that you have the query worked out so that we've found Gary Mander. Other than that, that is it for our performance objective. If you would like to uninstall Access at this point to keep your parental units happy, do so.